And my psyche was changed as well. I easily give up now, more irritable, can't sleep well at all, etc. My kids will choose what they want to be even if it's curling. What is something that your parents did that you swore never to repeat to your own kids? Constantly comparing myself to other people's kids and belittling my own achievements. It's like the equivalent of comparing your parents' wages, house or job with other kids' parents. Get loaded in front of them. Growing up in a family of drunks has soured me for the most part to drinking even socially. I do partake occasionally but not often. Deep down I feel alcoholism is in my genetics, so I steer clear unless the occasion is perfect. Refuse to admit I was wrong. Parents aren't infallible, insisting you are is asinine. Parents can provide teaching moments by admitting, explaining, and apologizing for their mistakes. Children should know that learning from your mistakes is one of the fastest paths to personal growth. Not be affectionate. My mom was very distant and not a physically emotional person with me growing up. I realized that if I have kids I'd want to read to them, hug them, celebrate their accomplishments. Overall have them feel comfortable with me to share their thoughts or feelings. Be unapproachable. Come talk to me anytime about anything. Everything can be fixed. My son hides things from his mom and waits until he can tell me because she won't respond appropriately. He lost a video game, and was lying to her about having lost it, but was so scared that she would find out he was lying. He told me in the car when I picked him up, and I told her I needed to look for something of his that he wanted. All he ended up doing was having it wedged in his game case where he couldn't see it. My 6-year-old was giving himself anxiety because of a stupid Nintendo Switch game because his mom would have belittled and spanked him instead of helping look for it. It breaks my heart. Use them as leverage against the other parent. Abuse them, allow them to be abused by a significant other, abandon them, then return years later once they've grown and try to cause them as much pain as possible for who knows why. I have 4 sons and I genuinely can't imagine doing most of what happened to me to them. Blows my mind. Really poor food choices. My mom, trailer trash, I'm sorry, used to go every day to the 7-Eleven and get me a lunch of powdered donuts, a pop, and some chips, every so often a sandwich in those little plastic triangles, or a chocolate bar. I used to think it was cool, but even at 12, I knew something was up. I remember my teacher one time came up to me and said, "Don't you ever have anything healthy?" I laughed it off, but I felt like it was a bad thing to do to a kid. Tell me I depress them when I confide in them. When I came out about it, my mom blamed me and said, "Why are you doing this to me?" Like I made up 10+ years of depression to get at her or something. It's not a good feeling. If you don't stop crying, I'll give you something to cry about. I am told I was a very sensitive kid, and maybe I was, but honestly, with the crap they were saying to me, could anyone really blame me for crying? 90% of the time, if I cried in front of them it was because of them, and my stepdad would always say that stupid phrase. I like logic, always have, it makes much more sense than things like emotions. So, when he would say that, I only made the mistake of replying once, but I'm already crying because of you giving me something to cry about. I copied speech, grammar, and phrasing from other people around me as a kid, so that's the way my brain chose to phrase my response. Looking back, maybe he thought I was mocking him or something. So, yeah, that didn't go over well. I was like 9. When I was little, when my dad was doing anything out in the yard, my brother and I would ask if we could help. The answer was always, "You can help by staying out of the way." My kids are always allowed to help, and so feel they can contribute, grow a sense of self-worth, and an appreciation of group effort. I won't scorn them or yell at them when they mess up. I was a really sensitive kid, so when my parents told me to go to hell or called me a moron, it tore at me, and distorted my self-image. If I have kids, I can't imagine ever doing to them what my parents did to me. Edit, this was my parents' attempt to get me to grow thicker skin. But words hurt. One thing led to another and depression began to take its hold. And at such a young age too. The thought of depression and self-hatred that required therapy sessions to manage terrified me. Thankfully, they took the hint and settled down, and I still keep in touch with them. I was not allowed to have any friends or date. Also, I had my door taken off at 14 and told I didn't deserve privacy because I slammed it. Guilt tripping, physical and emotional abuse. Edit, I asked to hang a sheet up for privacy and they said I didn't deserve privacy for slamming my door. I had my first ever panic attack that way and my stepdad told me to stop over-exaggerating. My depression and anxiety was always belittled. I was in a mental hospital and my dad and stepmom came to see me, and my stepmom just kept telling me what a horrible person I was and that I was just there to get away from her. Also, my stepdad would call me a slut and punish me for things my brother did. He also molested me on several occasions, and when I told my mom, he convinced her I was lying. He told me my feelings didn't matter. But if my kid ever came forward and said something like that about my spouse, I wouldn't just not believe them and accuse them of lying. Lecture. My mom could go on for hours for even small misbehaviors. Somehow, it usually looped around to how I didn't keep my room clean, even though the rest of the house was just as much of a mess or worse. When I need to have a stern or serious discussion with my kids, I force myself to make my point in 5 minutes or less. I've even said stuff like, "Look, this is taking way too long, just don't do disallowed thing again, okay?" I also apologize if I yell, as soon as I am emotionally able to after an angry outburst. I don't remember mom ever doing that. Because I said so. I always have a reason why I ask them to do something. If they ask why, I'll explain. I'll explain my reason, my reasons for my reason, various other factors I considered. I can go on for a while. They know this. The other day I asked my 7-year-old to do something, she said, "Why?" I thought about it for a sec and I asked, "Is because I said so a good enough reason?" She thought about it for a sec and said, "Yeah." For about 3 seconds, I felt like I nailed parenting. Redo things they've done because it's not the exact way I would have done it. My mom would refold the laundry or remake my bed. Drove me nuts and made me feel like why even bother trying. I sometimes wonder if I was affected by this same kind of thing. Not exactly the same, but essentially, when I was a kid, my mom would tell me to clean my room and make my bed. I'd do exactly that to the best of my ability, then I'd go get her so she could tell me if I was done. It almost never failed. She'd tell me that my room wasn't clean enough and my bed wasn't made enough. Then I was left to try to figure out what I was missing. I would try straightening things more, then get her again, and she'd tell me the room still wasn't clean enough and the bed not made enough. I would just feel baffled because I had no idea what more I could do before it was enough. I felt like there was some invisible mess that she could see, but somehow I couldn't. I couldn't understand what I was missing, and it would never be explained to me exactly what still needed to be straightened up, or what part of my bed still needed to be made. So now as an adult, in just about any context, I often have this underlying self-doubt that I am missing something, somehow, and I can't trust myself to know when I've done enough. Try to be controlling over my kid's life and blame all the problems on the other parent. When I was 15, my dad, an MD, decided to have a meeting with me to discuss my future and make a choice of what I wanted to be. I wanted to be a programmer so bad. I loved it. So I said programming, software engineering. He went on for over an hour about how that profession is lame and you'll always be behind the scenes unrecognized. This was back in 2004, how wrong was he? So, I didn't know what to tell him. I remember my cousin, who was a few years older at the time, told me accounting would be a good fit for me if I didn't know what to pick. It would be easy for me and I'd fly through my degree. So I remembered that and said, "Alright, I'll go into accounting." He literally exploded in my face, yelling and shouting how could I throw my future away. I was scared of him. I never was close to him. He barely spent time with me my entire life. This grown-ass man was never there for me but decided to control my life. I knew what he wanted me to say, I just wanted the yelling and shouting to stop and I wanted him to calm down. So, I said defeatedly, okay, I'll be a doctor. He immediately turned around, smiled happy and congratulated me. I felt what it's like to have a part of me die that day. I wasted 3 years of my life in med school before I got depressed and asked my sister to help me convince him to transfer over to engineering school, but my life was never the same. And my psyche was changed as well. I easily give up now, more irritable, can't sleep well at all, etc. My kids will choose what they want to be even if it's curling.
Like and subscribe for more funny, interesting, and scary r/ask Reddit videos.